Sophie Lionnet was a young girl born into a simple family in Troyes, a city in the northeastern part of France, on January 7, 1996. Her father, Patrick Lionnet, worked as a gardener, and her mother, Catherine Devillon, had separated from her father. Sophie grew up in her mother's care, along with her stepfather. Her life was filled with simple joys. She had a passion for ice skating, loved horses, enjoyed video games, and was fond of movies. Even as a child, Sophie was known for her kind heart. She cared deeply about children, animals, and was concerned about climate change, showcasing her altruistic nature early on. Sophie was described by her mother and those who knew her as an incredibly nice and affectionate person, always carrying a smile on her face. However, it's crucial to highlight a particular aspect of her personality. Sophie was very shy and somewhat naive. This characteristic is important to remember as we delve into her story. Her love for children led her to pursue a degree in early childhood education at the university. However, despite her qualifications, Sophie found it challenging to secure a job in her field within her local area. This struggle brought her to a pivotal moment in her life when a friend came across a job listing. A family in London was in search of a French-speaking nanny to look after their children. Without hesitation, Sophie saw this as her chance. Though she had never considered working abroad, and certainly never left France before, she was convinced that this opportunity would not only provide her with valuable experience, but also improve her chances of finding a job back home. Moreover, living and working in England presented an excellent opportunity to improve her English skills. On the eve of the new year in 2015, Sophie shared with her cousin Melanie her excitement and pride for taking such a bold step in her life. By January 2016, at the age of 20, Sophie arrived in London, leaving behind her family and the familiar surroundings of Troyes. She was full of hope, looking forward to what she believed would be one of the greatest adventures of her life. However, unknown to Sophie, fate had a grim turn in store for her. The couple who hired Sophie was of French nationality and Algerian origin. The mother of the children, Sabrina Couture, was a 35-year-old celebrity makeup artist, composer, and fashion designer. Sabrina was a woman of ambition. She had made her way to London back in 2004, starting as a nanny herself. Over the years, Sabrina worked various jobs, from childcare to working in a post office and even selling crepes, all while aiming to break into the fashion industry. Her efforts paid off as she eventually made a name for herself in the world of celebrity makeup, allowing her to mingle with celebrities and artists. Her success in this arena granted her invitations to prestigious events, and she soon adopted a lifestyle filled with expensive dresses, jewelry, and designer bags. Despite her achievements, Sabrina was always striving for more. Sabrina had a complex and tumultuous relationship with Mark Walton, a musician from the Irish band Boyzone, with whom she had a child. Their separation in 2013 marked the beginning of Sabrina's obsession with the lifestyle she believed she could have had alongside Walton. Initially, Walton supported Sabrina financially, even paying her rent in Southfields. However, once he ceased these payments, Sabrina's frustration turned into a deep-seated anger, leading to what some speculate was the beginning of a vindictive plan. When Sophie arrived in London to work for Sabrina and her husband, Wissam Madouni, known as Sam, a 40-year-old financial analyst with an education from the University of Paris, she entered a household unaware of the complexities and the underlying tensions that would eventually shape her tragic story. In 2001, Sabrina Couture, then only 18, met Sam Madouni in France. Their lives took a significant turn when, in 2013, Sabrina ended her relationship with Mark Walton and started a new chapter with Sam in Southfields, a neighborhood in southwest London, where they rented a house together. It wasn't long before they welcomed a daughter into their family. To outsiders, Sabrina and Sam presented the image of a successful, glamorous couple. Sam was employed at a French bank in London, while Sabrina had her connections in the music, fashion, and finance worlds. Despite the outward appearance of success, life at home was far from perfect. Sabrina was never satisfied. She frequently complained about Sam's weekend work at the bank, which eventually led to his dismissal due to his exhausted patience from his employers. Sam, having saved up from his time working, invested in 2 apartments in Paris, ensuring they had a steady income. However, Sabrina's demands for more financial resources never ceased. She had a volatile and manipulative personality, often ending arguments with loud outbursts. She accused Sam of laziness while simultaneously belittling any employment opportunities that came her way. When tensions in the household rose to unbearable levels, Sam would take walks to clear his head, always returning home ready to face whatever argument Sabrina had in store. Sabrina's obsession with her ex, Mark Walton, reached extreme levels. She convinced Sam that Walton was involved in child abuse, black magic, and espionage against them. With Sam's support, Sabrina made up to 30 reports to the police and social services about Walton, all of which were eventually dismissed as false allegations. This was the unsettling background of the household that Sophie Lionnet walked into, completely unaware of the challenges she would face. She was hired to care for 2 children, ages 6 and 3, who were described as calm and not particularly demanding by Sophie. In her early days, Sophie noticed the stark contrast between her employers. Sabrina exuded confidence and always dressed in high fashion, proudly showcasing her connections to the glamorous world. Sam, on the other hand, was more reserved, rarely smiling or engaging with neighbors, which led many to believe they were an odd match. For the first year, everything appeared to go smoothly for Sophie, with photographs from that time suggesting she was happy. However, those who saw her around the neighborhood noted she was always alone or with the family, never socializing with other nannies or joining in community activities, likely due to her introverted nature. By spring 2017, Sabrina's fixation on Mark Walton intensified. Walton had moved to Los Angeles and was living a wealthy lifestyle, a stark contrast to Sabrina's. Out of frustration and jealousy, Sabrina began to take out her anger on Sophie. It started with shouting over minor issues, such as a misplaced glass or meals not prepared on time. Sophie, ever silent, would look down to hide her tears, never responding to the harsh treatment. The situation escalated as Sabrina's accusations became more severe. Whenever she couldn't find something, she accused Sophie of theft. Verbal abuse turned physical, with Sabrina resorting to slapping and pulling Sophie's hair. Despite this, Sophie remained passive, retreating to her room to cry alone. Her fear of the couple, especially Sabrina's unpredictable rage, growing day by day. Her life had become a constant navigation through a sea of anger and accusations, a far cry from the adventure she had envisioned when leaving France for London. Sophie's situation rapidly deteriorated as her employers began to impose harsher punishments on her. They withheld food, leading to Sophie losing weight with each passing week. Michael, a local restaurant owner familiar with the family, noticed the change in Sophie. He recalled that whenever she visited his restaurant, she would eat so quickly that it was unclear whether she was truly hungry or in a rush to return to work. Sophie always wore the same clothes and appeared disheveled, which raised concerns about her well-being. The treatment Sophie received at home grew increasingly severe. Sabrina Kuiter ceased paying her salary, stripped her of her leisure time, and exerted an ever-tightening grip over Sophie's life, dictating her every move. To further isolate Sophie, Sabrina confiscated her passport and phone, leaving her with no means to seek help or escape. This isolation exploited Sophie's naturally introverted personality, making her situation even more dire. In a poignant message to her father in July 2017, Sophie expressed her desire to return to France due to the escalating tensions in the household. This was the last communication Patrick Lionnet received from his daughter. He later expressed deep regret, wishing he had understood the severity of Sophie's circumstances to intervene personally. Sophie's attempts to escape or seek help were met with resistance and manipulation. On one occasion, she sought refuge with a family acquaintance, only for Sabrina to publicly berate her and forcibly bring her back. Another time, while visibly upset at Michael's restaurant, Sabrina's intimidating presence prevented Sophie from revealing her distress, leading her to claim she was upset over her mother's illness instead. The situation reached a tragic climax on the afternoon of Wednesday, September 20, 2017. Neighbors were alarmed by the smell and smoke emanating from Sam and Sabrina's garden. Upon inquiring, Sam casually claimed he was merely cooking chicken and lamb on the barbecue. Unsatisfied with his explanation, the neighbors summoned the firefighters. Arriving around 6:20 p.m., the firefighters discovered the barbecue had been burning for approximately 3 hours. Thomas Hunt, one of the first responders, initially noticed what appeared to be chicken among the remains, but a closer inspection revealed a horrifying sight. What seemed to be a human nose and fingers. Confronted with this gruesome discovery, Sam insisted the remains were part of the lamb he was cooking. However, Hunt, skeptical of Sam's explanation, noticed melted glasses among the remains and recognized the unmistakable smell of burning human flesh. The timely intervention of the neighbors prevented the complete destruction of evidence that would later reveal the truth behind Sophie's tragic end. The police were quickly called to the scene, resulting in the immediate arrest of Sam and Sabrina. During interrogation, the couple turned against each other, each blaming the other for Sophie's demise. The trial, held between March and May 2018, shed light on the extent of Sophie's suffering. The court was presented with over 8.5 hours of chilling video evidence recovered from the defendants' mobile phones, recorded just hours before Sophie's murder. These videos depicted Sophie being interrogated and tortured by the couple, showcasing the harrowing conditions she endured. The footage revealed a young woman who was emaciated, terrified, and desperate to appease her tormentors, highlighting the cruel reality of her final days. At the heart of Sabrina Kuiter's actions was a desperate and twisted scheme to extract a confession from Sophie Lionnet. Sabrina was convinced, or at least pretended to believe, that Sophie was conspiring with her ex-partner, Mark Walton. She imagined Sophie as a spy, feeding information about her and her family to Walton. Sabrina's end goal was not just to vilify Sophie or Walton, but to use this fabricated conspiracy as leverage to extort money from her wealthy ex. To force Sophie into submission and to make her parrot these baseless accusations, Sabrina and her partner, Wissam Madouni, resorted to barbaric methods. They physically assaulted Sophie with electric cables, inflicting pain on her legs, pulled her hair with such force that it came out in strands, and delivered harsh kicks to her chest. They subjected her to verbal abuse, screamed unfounded atrocities at her, and compelled her to write false statements that accused Walton of misconduct. Their brutality escalated to breaking her bones and subjecting her to water torture, demonstrating a complete disregard for her well-being and humanity. Throughout this harrowing ordeal, Sophie complied with their demands, yet her compliance did nothing to halt their cruelty. Investigators discovered the coerced writings at the couple's residence, where Sophie, under duress, claimed Walton had sexually assaulted her and promised her film roles, detailing supposed secret meetings and intimate information about Sabrina. However, these claims were entirely fabricated under Sabrina's manipulative pressure. When police questioned Mark Walton, he denied all allegations, stating he had never met Sophie and was not even in the UK during the period Sabrina had concocted her accusations. The absurdity of the allegations highlighted Sabrina's delusional obsession and the lengths she would go to malign Walton. The autopsy of Sophie's remains revealed the extent of her physical suffering before her death, with injuries including a broken jaw, sternum, and ribs. These injuries occurred days before her death, which experts believed was caused by drowning. The exact timeline of her final days remains uncertain, obscured by the couple's attempt to destroy her body and erase evidence of their heinous acts. Throughout the trial, neither Sabrina nor Madouni expressed remorse, with Sabrina persisting in her delusions about Sophie and Walton. Psychiatric evaluations of Sabrina indicated a personality disorder and depression, yet these diagnoses did not absolve her of responsibility, as she was deemed capable of distinguishing right from wrong. The prosecution portrayed Sophie's living conditions as a domestic nightmare, emphasizing her vulnerability and naivety. The couple's attempt to dispose of Sophie's body and fabricate a story about her disappearance was thwarted by alert neighbors and firefighters, leading to their arrest. During the trial, the couple's relationship further deteriorated as they turned on each other, each attempting to deflect blame. Sabrina initially claimed Sophie had passed away in her sleep, while Madouni suggested her death in the bathtub was an accident. Their contradictory statements and attempts to save themselves only served to deepen their guilt in the eyes of the court and the public. This tragic story underscores the extreme vulnerability of individuals like Sophie, isolated and abused in a foreign country, and the devastating consequences of unchecked paranoia and cruelty within a household. It's a sobering reminder of the importance of vigilance and compassion in our communities to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Sam claimed he was not responsible for Sophie's death, although he confessed to burning her body. His story changed over time. At one point, he accused Sabrina of the murder, saying she woke him to tell him Sophie wasn't breathing. This contradicted his earlier account, where he admitted to pushing Sophie into the bathroom, where she hit her head and became unconscious. He claimed to have attempted to revive her without success. Sabrina, in turn, accused Sam, further complicating the narrative of that tragic day. The precise sequence of events and the exact roles they each played remained obscured, known only to Sam and Sabrina, but what was undeniably clear was Sophie's victimhood in a horrendous crime. During the trial, a protected witness, believed to be one of Sabrina's children, testified that both defendants were present in the bathroom when the fatal incident occurred. In a shocking revelation, Sabrina tearfully claimed that Sam coerced her into a sexual act beside Sophie's lifeless body, adding a horrifying dimension to the already gruesome tale. Sophie's parents, Catherine Devillon and Patrick Lionnet, were largely unaware of the true extent of their daughter's suffering. Catherine recalled encouraging Sophie to return to France upon sensing her unhappiness, not realizing the depth of her ordeal. Catherine's statement to the court reflected her anguish and disbelief at the monstrous acts inflicted upon her daughter. They subjected her to beatings, starvation, and endless abuse, stripping her of her dignity and eventually her life in a harrowing ordeal in that bathroom. They are monsters. No deity could forgive what they did to my daughter. The haunting images of Sophie's emaciated form and the remains of her funeral pyre are etched in Catherine's memory, a sight she wishes she could unsee. Patrick expressed his profound grief and inability to comprehend or forgive the brutality of Sabrina and Sam. The atrocity of their actions is beyond understanding. I struggle to remember her as the joyful, smiling girl I last saw, but often, the horror of what they did overwhelms me. The sound of her frightened, tearful voice in the trial recordings haunts me, replacing the loving words she once spoke. On May 24, 2018, the court sentenced Sabrina Kuiter and Wissam Madouni to life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 30 years. The judge, in his sentencing remarks, highlighted Sophie's kind and gentle nature, emphasizing the cruelty and unlawfulness of the defendant's actions against her. He noted the prolonged and merciless nature of the suffering inflicted upon Sophie, making it clear that both were culpable in her torture and death. As time passes, Sam continues to seek a loophole in the legal proceedings that might secure his release, while Sophie's parents hope for the full enforcement of the sentence, longing for justice for their daughter. The trial revealed the unimaginable cruelty inflicted upon Sophie, yet the motives behind such inhumanity remained elusive, leaving many questions unanswered. The story of Sophie Lionnet is a tragic reminder of the vulnerabilities of those far from home and the depths of depravity to which individuals can sink, leaving a lasting impact on all who learn of her fate.